Welcome to Take Me With You, episode 17. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Cheryl. We are two well-traveled people who want to go everywhere.
But that's not going to happen. So instead, we'll travel vicariously by inviting a guest to share their unique travel stories with us.
Today, we are talking to Sarah. Sarah is a grad student who lives in Madrid. I got to meet her when I was over in Spain a couple months ago, and so we're so excited to have her on to talk about that sweet, sweet Spanish lifestyle. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you.
Yay. So, tell us a little bit about, your family background and where you grew up.
Yeah, so I am Brazilian American. So my dad is from Iowa and my mom is from São Paulo, Brazil. And they both moved to Spain about 25 years ago and have been here ever since. And they moved up north to Asturias, and that's where my sister Amanda and I were born. And then we just kind of moved around, so mostly in Madrid, but we also lived a little bit in the States, in Miami, and then went to Brazil for some time, and now I'm back.
Wow. So you have, I was trying to think about what the term would be for, your family. I was thinking, is it, tricultural then? Or, what, is there a word for it? Because you are trilingual, correct?
Yeah. I think it would just be, multicultural. Mm-hmm. After bi, they just kind of go into multi instead of tri.
Sure, yeah. Quad cultural.
Quad. Yeah, but I guess it would
really
be multicultural a little bit. It's kind of, at home we kind of speak all three languages and then act three different ways. It can be confusing.
That's so interesting.
Does your family pretty seamlessly move between those three cultures and languages, or does that, even within your family, is it sometimes jarring?
I think we kind of move, especially between Spanish and English. We'll just kind of speak Spanglish a lot of the time. Portuguese, we don't speak as much, but sometimes we'll just throw in a word and we may not really realize that until after, or perhaps when we have someone who doesn't speak Portuguese with us, they'll be like, what? But culturally, I don't really know what we are, if we're mostly American or Spanish or Brazilian. I think it's just a mixture. Maybe Cheryl will be able to tell you more. She came over.
Yeah, that's interesting then, because I would imagine, without having grown up at all in those circumstances, that it might have been hard to tell at points, with your family dynamic, where does this piece of our dynamic come from? Is this a Brazilian aspect of our family, or an American one, or a Spanish one?
Yeah. No, I think that's true, especially with my siblings and I, because we went to Spanish school. And so you get a lot of how you're formed, with your mind and all that when you're growing up, has to do with the environment you're at school. And so we're probably more Spanish than my parents. But yeah, I still don't really know what parts of me, are more American or Brazilian.
That's so interesting. Wow. And then you went to university in the States. Yeah.
Yes. I went to Virginia. So very different.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us about that. What were pieces of culture shock? What were pieces that felt familiar to you? Did you start to identify things in your family dynamic that you realized oh, that is American? Or what was that all like?
That's a big question. I think when so my first year, it was kind of the typical college. I love all of this. This is such a cool American experience. The football games, fast food, driving. I think it did take. It was a little difficult just getting used to, I guess, the way people viewed time. And I know that it was kind of, in college, you do have to work with structure, 3 p.m. I'm in class, 6 p.m. I'm here, but things are a lot more laid back here. And so we're not so much in a rush. I think, in Spain. And I think that even up until graduation day, it was hard for me. It was hard for me to adapt to that. And so, I don't know if I was able to identify what things were American, because it just changes depending on the situation. But I overall liked my experience there. I learned a lot, and just like the American mentality, I think of like, you do work hard, but you also think big and think creatively. And those are values that, I really appreciated. And also just giving, just being very generous with what we have.
So tell me a little bit more about this being in a rush. When you say that not as much in a rush, what does that look like, and how does that feel to how did it feel to you?
So I kind of just use the example of like if I'm hanging out with a friend, and this is a stereotype, and so not, it really depends on the person. But overall, I guess a way to explain it is if I were to hang out with a friend, say like at 5 p.m. In the States, then I would expect that by like 7 p.m. I'd probably finish hanging out with my friend, or I wouldn't be surprised if my friend had other plans after 7 p.m. I guess here it's more of if I'm going to hang out with you at 5 p.m., I'm not going to make any other plans the rest of the day because we're probably going to hang out until later. And so just kind of, taking more time, spending a lot of time with people. And obviously, like I said, it's a stereotype. So I'm not going to, generalize, because I had friends who like I would hang out with the entire day. They're American. But that's kind of like the main idea, I guess.
So would it be accurate to say that American culture tends to try and cram more things into the same amount of time? Like we try to, okay, well, I'm going to hang out with you for this amount of time, and then I'm going to do this other thing after that, and do this other thing after that.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if I can say that for America in general, because I mean that's kind of the college culture. So I didn't stay in the States after college, so I wouldn't be able to say how it is for like the working world or But I do think it is more of like, let's try to do all of this, and more of like task oriented. Like I have errands to run, I have this to do, I need to go back home. And here we're very much like people oriented. We like to spend time with people. And just kind of, we have a saying, it's called sin prisas, without rush. And I think that is an important mentality here in Spain.
That's really interesting. So, I mean, I think you're right about that. Like, even outside of college, that like we do try to do more. And I would say, like, for me, if I saw a friend at 5 and then they were like, I have a thing at 7, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be offended or anything like that. Just to me feels so normal. And so I think like you're correct as far as like, I mean, you're pretty like spot on with that. So when that first happened to you, were you like surprised by that, or what was that experience like?
I was, and I think at the time I wasn't mature enough to know that like it's okay if you don't fit in, But I think I was kind of shocked, probably like a little confused and hurt at times. But then I just kind of put that blame on myself, kind of like, okay, this is just the way things are, go along with it. And I think I wasn't able to fully accept, like, it's okay to think differently or to behave differently until later on in college. So it was a little hard, yeah.
And did you get to spend any time in, like, your friends' like homes, like with their families or anything like that?
Yeah, I did. But I think towards the end of college, my best friends were also people who grew up overseas, and their parents were overseas. But as to friends who had family, like there in Virginia, they invited me in like for Easter weekend or spring break, and so it was cool to just see what it was like to be like a full-on American family. And they just like gave us like really nice rooms, and it it was cool just to like have dinner with them. It was much more like, what I noticed was like the kids were a lot more independent, so they had their own schedule. So even like, oh, are you having dinner here, or what are you doing? Like, I was surprised by that, because I guess it wasn't as like, okay, family oriented, or you know.
Sure.
So what would that be like in Spain then? Like, how would you compare and contrast those families?
I mean, I guess it really depends, but I think here you kind of like make decisions as a family. So if someone's coming over, like everyone's going to be kind of with that person or have dinner with that person, and it's much more like group focused. And so it's not like, oh, hey, I'm hanging out with a friend at, you know, having lunch with them. We're going to go out and do this. Like you go out with your friends and stuff, but I don't know if I'm explaining it well. It's just kind of, yeah, I guess, group oriented. So you make decisions as a family.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing, when I've had friends who have moved to somewhere in Europe or spent a long amount of time there, they've said that like it's a lot easier to travel around Europe once you're over there. And so I would just love to hear, like, have you found that to be true? And if so, like, have you taken advantage of that? Like, what type of traveling have you done, like, in your years, you know, living in Spain?
I think that's definitely true, because Europe is kind of like a lot of just little states. And so, you know how like people just road trip from, I don't know, Virginia to Iowa. I mean, we did that a lot, or like Texas to California. So you're able to do that. So I think growing up, like we just took advantage of that. And like we went camping to several places. So we went, you know, France, Germany, Austria, Italy. And so just able to drive through those places.
You went camping in France, Germany, Austria,
yeah,
Italy.
Yeah,
that's definitely not
Gotta
the
save
image
money.
that comes to my mind with camping.
Right? Ryan, I think we might have just been sold on camping.
Honestly, the most spectacular like camping sites, like in Switzerland. Just imagine like sleeping by the lakes in the mountains. Like, it's incredible, honestly.
Gosh.
And it is a good way to save
That's
money.
so
So I recommend it. But yeah, I mean, like I've been back in Spain for about 6-7 months now, and I've been able to just get like weekend flights to places for very cheap, and even just driving to Portugal. So it's just, yeah, Europe is a great place to just see lots of countries, and see just how different they are too, because even going from northern Spain to south of Spain, it's very different.
I keep hearing that, and I've seen bits of that when I've visited, and then I think everybody I've talked to who is from Spain just talks about how different each region is, and I'm still trying to figure out, like, how would that compare to how different, like, areas of the United States are, or, like, any other country, because I just keep hearing, like, how different the different regions of Spain are, and it's hard to compare, like, so is that so much more than, like, the States, or, you know, things like that?
Yeah. Well, I would probably compare it to, like, say, like, Seattle and Savannah, Georgia, you know, like, there's a big difference there. And, like, it comes along with, like, the stereotypes. So, like, the South is very relaxed, warm, friendly. And then maybe you go up north and they're a little more, like, not antisocial, but they're not as warm,
Yeah, you
not
can
as
say
friendly.
antisocial. It's okay. It's okay. We call it the Seattle freeze. It's fine.
Yeah.
I've never been to Seattle. So I think that would be the case in Spain, especially since up north you have the Basque Country, so they're kind of like their own thing as well. And in the south, you have, it's just a different way of living. I think when people think of Spain, they probably think like the stereotypes of like flamenco, you know, dancing, drinking, just, you know, partying and having a good time is more of like the idea of the South. But yeah, it's very different. I don't know. You have to live it to see it.
I mean, I would imagine it's even more diverse than the States just because they're also different languages. Like that makes
you have
a bigger difference.
yeah, Gallego. In Galicia, you have Basque in the Basque Country, Catalan in Barcelona, like Catalunya area, Valenciano. You have many others. I don't even know them all, but and a lot of dialects too. So even the accent changes a lot.
Did you have any stereotypes of America that you realized were wrong, like when you came over here, like, or something that you were like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I thought it was going to be like?
I mean, I didn't know at all kind of like the stereotypes of the South. And growing up, I would mostly spend like summers or vacation in Iowa. And so that's very, Midwestern, like fields of corn and, and I didn't know of the stereotype of Iowa. So even when I told people like, oh, my dad's from Iowa, like, oh, there's not much there. And then when I was in Iowa, I got to talk to my family, like, so what do you think about the South? And I mean, some people would say that Virginia's the South. Virginians probably wouldn't think that, but the stereotype is like, oh, they're just lazy, they don't know much, and kind of like rednecks. All of them are rednecks. And so being in Virginia, yes, you do see some rednecks, but it's not the case, like people are educated and so it's just kind of that. It's cool to see that stereotype, especially not having grown up in America. Like being able to see that throughout the college years was really cool. And then also just having some friends in California and like that whole stereotype, like, beach, relaxing, that is, I guess, true.
For parts of California.
Parts of California, probably, yeah. I can't really think of anything that would be like, oh, this is not true. I guess what I expected of America is what I saw.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for sharing about that.
Yeah. So we've got a couple of questions that we like to ask all of our guests. And for you, they may take a little bit different sort of a spin, and that's totally fine. But the first question is, why do you travel?
Oh, why do I travel? I travel to know more and to know more of the world and how people think and how that affects like how they live.
And would you say that with the different places that you've gone, you've seen more diversity in the way people think and how they live, or more similarities in the way people think and live?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, you definitely, like, you need to spend time with the people to see, the differences. But I always think of this, like, comparison. Like, I was able to go to Indonesia my first year of college, like, for, like, a short trip, like, week trip. And then the following year, I got to go to Guatemala. And just, like, working on different projects and just spending time with, like, kids there and stuff. And I do a lot of camps here in Spain as well, and I think what always came to mind was like all these kids, they just love to play and they laugh and they do handshakes and they do, all these things, and just seeing the same, kind of attitudes in these kids throughout every country made me realize, well, at the end of the day, we're not that different. If they're similar as kids, then they shouldn't change much. By the time they grew up, everyone wants basically the same thing, a house to live in, family to love, food to eat. And so I guess like that's kind of like my mentality. Like, yes, we have a lot of differences in the way we, cook our food and the way we love our family and the way we prioritize our day. But we are essentially, I think, the same.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah. So what kind of traveler would you say that you are?
Oh, what kind of traveler? What do you mean?
I mean, however you would like to interpret that. So, I mean, Yeah, if you were to describe your travel style to someone, say us, how would you do that?
Spontaneous. I don't really like to plan. I like to plan where I'm going. But besides that, I don't really like to. I like to just let the country, do its thing, or let the place do its thing. And so I mean, I think, yeah, I just like to discover how people really live, and not. I like to do some like touristy things, but I like to just spend time in the place and kind of do like what I love to do in those places. So like, I don't know, biking or getting coffee. And I mean, I think it's even better when you know like local people wherever you're traveling.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Gives you a real taste for it, I think.
So when you say you don't like to plan much, like what you said, you want to know like where you're going. Is that literally the only thing? Is like what city, or are there other things that you want to know ahead of time, and then everything else is spontaneous?
Well, okay, so I think the last trip that I did was a couple weeks ago with my parents. We went to London for a weekend, and we had plans Saturday night. It was to go see. It was for my dad's birthday. We got him tickets to go see Agatha Christie's The Mousetrap.
Oh,
and
cool.
So we had that, and it was like, okay, Saturday night, we know we have that going on. Besides that, though, we kind of made plans like the morning of, and even then, we didn't really follow them through all the way because we wanted to stop here and then hang out there, and
yeah.
I enjoy that much more than having, okay, from 10 to 2, we're going to be at Big Ben, and then at 2 p.m. we're going to have fish and chips, and just I enjoy the fluidity of the decision making. So,
yeah.
So do you want to know where you're staying? Like, do you want that to be planned, but just not the schedule?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you gone somewhere where you haven't known where you're staying and you just like figure it out?
Have I? Not like on my own, like with a group of people, yes. But, like when we went to Indonesia, it was kind of like a backpacking sort of thing. And so, but we had like a leader, so he made all the decisions. We just kind of went along with it, but he didn't really know where we were staying. So we just kind of stop in different, yeah, we would stop in different villages and then kind of just ask if there were people willing to host us that night. I don't remember being nervous about it, but maybe he was. I don't know.
No, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. So what would you say is your number one travel tip?
Number one travel tip. Take a notebook and a pen.
And why is that?
I think you learn so much about yourself, like when you're traveling, and about other people. And I don't know, that's the experience I get whenever I travel is just new thoughts all the time. And so I just need to write them down because it's not the same when you write them afterwards.
So are you somewhat disciplined with like travel journaling then? Like, do you have a time that you always do it, or is it just when something comes up you write it down, or how do you
so that? Usually when I'm traveling, I keep like a journal like in life, in general life. But when I'm traveling, I'll either have like a separate little notebook that I can just take, and throughout my day, if I have time or if I know that there's something really important I need to write down, then I'll write it down. But if not, then at the end of the day, I for sure just jot down like what I did, or things that either inspired me or caught my attention. And I mean, like if I don't have a notebook, I'll just write it on my phone notes. But I do try to write down everything before I go to bed.
Cool. Well, what we wanted to focus on a little bit with this episode was we would just like to hear about living in Madrid. And then also I found some various like articles and websites and stuff that have tips on going to Madrid or going to Spain, and we want to hear your thoughts on that too. So first of all,
this will be fun.
I'm excited. But first of all, I would just love to hear you describe what is Madrid like.
Because, so for example, Cheryl's been there. I've never been to Spain. So all that I've heard about Madrid, I've either heard from Cheryl or a travel program or whatever. So yeah. I don't really have an idea other than they speak Spanish there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's start with, Ryan, what else do you know about Madrid?
Yeah, I want to know.
Speak Spanish there.
It's the capital of Spain.
Okay.
I feel like it's around the middle-ish of the country geographically, I think. And maybe flamenco dancing in Madrid, maybe.
Okay.
Tapas.
Okay. Pretty good.
That's about it.
All right. So Sarah, fill in the blanks.
I'll fill in the blanks. So Madrid is, oh man, where do I start? So I think when I have friends come over, they always mention how like Madrid is it's a city. And so you do have a lot of like cities are, they have that international element to it. So you can go into Madrid and speak English, and you can, figure out your way around, and just go from tourist place to tourist place. But at the same time, it's very Spanish. And I think that's a trait that not many cities in Europe hold, because it remains Spanish despite all the tourists and kind of the internationalization, if that's a word. Because you just kind of walk around and you're not in a rush to go places. You see that, people walking around are not in a rush, and you just get a little taste of everything. Like there's beautiful architecture, very like old and quaint streets, and there's also the more modern side to Madrid, and there are neighborhoods where it's a lot quieter and more like serious, in their neighborhoods where it's like kind of like the hipster part of town, and then you have the kind of like multicultural areas. Specifically there's one that's called Lavapiés, and they kind of all just kind of connect to each other, and it's just, you get a different vibe. No matter the neighborhood. It's just a place where you can just enjoy strolling, I think, primarily. And just having a café con leche, going tapas, going a tapear. That's what the verb that we use for that. You go from bar to bar, having a tapa. So you just usually get a drink and something they'll give you a tapa on the side. So you just go to enjoy yourself, and there's a lot of like partying too that you can do like at night, and there's a lot of just chilling out. It's a place to go chill, I would say.
Which is such an interesting description of a big city, because I think to me there's so many big cities where I think like it's about like rushing around, and like busy people and everything. So the people that work there, like I'm interested, like for someone in a work day. I mean, I know a lot about like the siesta and everything. Like, is that a thing in Madrid still, or like is it a big enough city that's not really a thing, or like I don't know, what is that like?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on where you're working. If you own your business, you can make siesta a thing. Like you can close at 2 p.m. and then open up again at 5 or 6. In Madrid, that's probably not as frequent. Where I live in Alcalá, so a lot of people who live in Madrid kind of live out in the outskirts of Madrid in cities like mine. And here you will find that a lot of places close like during lunchtime and, siesta hours. But not everyone, like I work at a school, so I can't I don't have siesta or anything. I mean, I do get 2 hour lunch breaks, so I guess I could have a siesta during that time, but it's
Wow.
not. Yeah, siesta's more of like a summer thing, vacation thing, Sunday thing. Yeah,
So you say you work at a school, and you said a 2-hour lunch break?
yeah.
And is
I have
that
a
for
2 hour
so
lunch
the
break.
kids can all go home? Is that the idea?
Yeah, a lot of them go home. Yeah. So basically, from kind of 1 to 3 o'clock, I'll have a break. And I mean, growing up, I would do that. I would, because I lived like across the street from my school, so I would go home, have lunch, and then hang out. And I mean, when I was little, I would have like my naps, and sometimes I wouldn't even go back to school.
Sure.
But yeah, that is very typical. Some people do stay at school to have lunch, but even then, they would have like lunch at 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. and then have an hour to just play.
And then school starts back again at
Yeah, at 3 o'clock. So either
and then
from
goes until
4:30 or 5.
okay.
Yeah, that's usually with primary school and middle school. High schoolers leave around 2:30 or 3, and then they go and have lunch at home, and then they don't have to come back. But they start pretty early. They start around 8, which I guess would be the case in the States.
That's not so.
Right,
So
yeah,
I
early
teach
for
high
us.
school.
Early for
So-
us.
Starting at 8 o'clock is actually so. My high school that I work at actually starts at 8 o'clock, and we are the latest starting school
Really?
in my district.
See, I
Yeah.
can't. Wow. That's insane.
Yeah.
7
And
is a
there's
little
this
more
big-
typical.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like there's a big push right now in the States that it's better to start high school later.
Yeah.
And so there's been all this stuff about like starting schools later for students and things like that, just because it's
Yeah,
better
so you
for
can
their sleep
sleep.
patterns and things, which
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, because their circadian rhythms are such that they are going to stay up later at night just naturally and then sleep later in the day. But that would be a
Yeah.
cultural difference right there.
Yeah.
I also am just curious, since we're already on the school topic, a big push for not having days later here in the States are after school sports. Is that a thing that exists in Spain? What does that look like for
Yeah.
students?
Yeah, it is a big thing here. They love playing soccer, basketball, gymnastics, dance. I work for a cheerleading club, and they have practices twice a week. So usually all clubs will have practices twice a week. If you're kind of like an older age, like 16 or 17, and more serious about it, you may have like up to 3 or 4 practices a week. But a lot of schools offer that. If not, they have like local sports clubs or academies that you go to. But yeah, they're very active.
But they won't even start then until
Oh, yeah.
much later at night.
Yeah, that's the thing. So we'll start around 9 o'clock, go until 5, you get home, or go straight to practice, 5:30 to 7-ish. And you'll have like so around 5 o'clock, you'll have a merienda, which is a snack. And then till 7 o'clock, go home, maybe do homework. A lot of kids go to English school too. And you won't have dinner until like 9:30-ish. Hopefully by then all your homework is done, and then you can kind of go to bed by 11. But yeah, days are very long here.
Yeah. So you mentioned that a lot of students will do like extra English classes in the evening. So is English not offered in school, or is it just extra practice, or what?
Yeah.
What is?
So,
tell me more about that.
No,
extra
actually,
English classes.
all schools, mostly all of them, are bilingual. It's a kind of an attempt to, grow English within Spain, just because it's very needed to get any kind of job, like whether in Spain or outside. And you do have, like, I work at a bilingual school, so they have 1 hour of English a day, plus at least 2 subjects in English. But you don't get that
That'd be so
one-on-one. And so a lot of parents want their kids to have more conversation classes. And so they'll either have a private tutor with a native speaker or have them go to an English academy. And a lot of the kids kind of work up to different language levels. So you have like your B1, B2, C1, C2, and it kind of follows the Cambridge exams outline and all of that.
Okay.
But yeah, it is a priority for in education right now.
So they're just taking that subject really seriously then. And like if you really want to learn English fluently,
you kind of need to. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You kind of need to know English.
Wow. So you were a step ahead then.
I guess. I have my dad to thank me for that.
That's
to thank for, yeah.
Tell us about the transportation in Madrid.
We use a lot of public transportation. I have a car, even though I can't drive it right now because I'm working on my Spanish driver's license, which is very complicated. But right now I just kind of use the bus system or a train, and it's pretty. I mean, you would probably be able to say it's very common and very easy. I pay like 20 euros for my kind of like all public transport pass, and I get to go on as many bus rides and train rides as I want in a month. And people walk a lot too, so it's just kind of a lot of street life. You don't really need a car, which is nice, but yeah.
I love
Even
that.
though you don't live in actually like Madrid, you're on a small city that's on the outskirts. You still don't need a car even there.
No. I get the bus, and I mean, it's kind of a pain sometimes just like waiting for the bus or rushing to the train station because you're late to class. But yeah, it takes like maybe 15 minutes to get downtown, which is where I go to school and also work at a school. So it's very, and if I wanted to walk, I guess it'd be like 30 minutes or 45 minutes. But a lot of people just walk.
And so I'm interested if you've got, buses and trains that when I think of those, I think of schedules that have very distinct start and stop times. How does that mesh with what you've already shared with us about people not being in a rush and doing things until you're just done with the event before moving on? How do those two kind of things work together?
It doesn't really work well.
Okay then.
Yeah. So I may check. I have an app for like all the bus schedules, but I don't even look at it most of the time because they're usually like maybe 5 minutes late or more up to. I've like waited about 15 minutes before too. And trains are more strict with their schedules just because it's, I guess, automated. I don't really know how it works, but buses are kind of, you also depend on traffic. You depend on a lot of factors. So, but it isn't, that's not our forte. And so whether that's transportation or getting documents signed or, mail delivered, like it takes time. Efficiency is not as much of a priority, which can be frustrating, especially if you have spent time in the States and you know that things could be done differently, but that's just the way it is, yeah.
But then I would guess then too that there's less of an emphasis on being on time in the first place.
Yeah.
So if your bus is 15 minutes late and so you arrive to your thing 15 minutes late, I'm guessing that's less of a big deal than it is in the States?
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about social situations, if you meet with someone at 8 p.m., you're not actually going to meet at 8 p.m. It's more like 8:05, 8:10. Past 8:15, you'd probably say something.
That's
so that's
jam.
normal. Yeah. But then when it comes to like work and all that, like I get late to my classes and I shouldn't, but I maybe like 5 minutes late and it's not a big deal. So I guess it kind of depends on what situation, but usually it's not. I mean, even doctor's appointments, like I once got maybe 10 minutes late to a doctor's appointment. They're like, oh, don't worry, you're in Madrid. Like here, you know, you have to take the bus and all that. So it's kind of expected that, so, you know, something's going to come up. You're not going to be there right on the dot.
Mm-hmm. I like that. But then, okay, the drivers there are insane. Like car driving.
Yeah. I'm kind of nervous about it.
So that's hilarious because you watch cars driving there and it just feels like these are not people that are chill. These are not people that like just kind of like stroll down the streets. It's so funny to me, the cultural contrast between if you just watch like traffic there, like holy moly.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I think that's why I'm so nervous and, you know, pushing it back, driving in general. But, you kind of just got to think about yourself when you're driving. You know, if you have somewhere to go, just think of that. Don't really think about anyone else. Which is, it is, you know, contradictory, because then when you're in driving class, like there's strict rules, strict, you know, vocabulary and all that you need to know. So yeah, it's very contradicting.
Yeah, like our mutual friend Dan, when I was in the car with him, it was funny because at one point he apologized and he was like, I'm sorry, when I'm in Spain, I drive like a Spaniard. And that meant like, I'm driving crazy. I hope it doesn't scare you. And I was just kind of like, no, I trust you. And like, he was like, that's how you have to drive here. And so, but it's just so interesting if you watch those same people on a street versus those people in cars. Like, to me, those feel like they should be in different cultures. So it's an interesting contrast to me, you know? Yeah.
But I think the flip side, it sounds like getting your driver's license in the first place is significantly more arduous a task than it is here in the States. It has a lot more that that's expected of you. So then ideally you would have more skills in that driving environment.
Yeah, I would say so. Also, I mean, everything is manual too, so there's more rules as to, like, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so what I did, I pulled up a couple different things online about traveling to Spain. And so one of them, I think I already sent you a couple months ago, that I referenced before coming to Spain. And so this is from goabroad.com, and it is how to look like a local in Spain. So there are, I believe, like 5 or 6. I think there's 5 things it says to help you nail the dress code in Spain. So I want to hear what you think about that. One of the first one.
So Cheryl, when is this article dated?
2017.
Okay.
Yeah. 1995. Wait, no. Pre-internet. Number 1, say no to shorts. So it says that in Spain, if you're wearing shorts here, it's a dead giveaway that you're a tourist. What do you think about that?
I really don't understand. We love wearing shorts.
Do you think that's a generational thing?
No,
Do your parents' generation wear shorts?
Yeah, and capris, you know, shorts. I mean, there is like a certain time of the year where you can wear shorts. Like, you will not see people wearing shorts in April, maybe not even May.
Okay.
And so it's usually like explicitly summer-ish time, maybe up until October. But I mean, like, even people my age will wear shorts if, you know, now in December, like, if they want to. Like, it's not
Interesting.
Yeah, but yeah, shorts is a thing.
I have heard, something I've heard separate from this thing is that Spaniards dress for the season, not for the weather. Would you agree with that?
I agree.
Okay.
What does that mean?
So, like, you won't wear sandals in April or May because it's still not summertime, and sandals are for summer.
Even if you were to have a, like, random really, really warm day, like 35 degrees or something?
Yeah. Yeah. So, for example, one of my coworkers, she's from the Boston area, and she had spent some time in Spain, like, in her undergrad doing study abroad, but now she's doing the same grad program that I am. doing, and she came to school one day. This was maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago, with flats, and she wasn't wearing any tights, and so the top part of her foot, could be seen. And a lot of people came up to her and they're like, "What are you doing? Why are you showing your skin, your feet in this, cold fall weather?" It wasn't that cold,
Wow.
but it's just kind of like that idea, like you have to, not show your skin, not because of modesty, but because it's, it's not hot and it's not warm. So, yeah.
Yeah. So that would be a way that it'd be a little more strict, I guess, than in the States. Or at least, I don't know, maybe just the West Coast. Because, like, the West Coast is so casual that, like,
yes, I
think
are.
Ryan and I experience probably the most of the casualness, like, probably more than there should be at points. But, because, I mean, there is, like, a rule in the States that I've heard and never seen anyone follow of you don't wear white after Labor Day.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that,
that's just weird to me.
So that seems similar to, like, you don't wear sandals before summer, or stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, but, I mean, I would imagine on the East Coast or maybe in the South, there's some more, like, actually following certain fashion guidelines. Okay, so here's this number 2. Now, this one made me laugh probably the most, is number 2 says dress conservatively. Which,
what does that even mean?
I think it's like cover up, like don't show much skin. It says it just means that clothing such as tank tops or mini skirts are frowned upon and generally saved for weekends out with friends.
I don't get that, because it's not true. Like I mean, people dress conservatively, like depending on who they are, but it's not like if you wear a tank top, it's not going to be frowned upon.
I felt like I saw way more skin in Spain than I do in the States.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I think people are just more comfortable with it, yeah.
Yeah, it seemed like people don't... I mean, there's also, like, topless beaches over there, so it just kind of feels like people are more chill about seeing people's skin, although apparently not the tops of their feet in the fall.
Oh, good one.
No, it's in the season, Cheryl.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the season.
Number 3...
Tank tops in December would not be okay.
Number 3 says, don't be flashy. Bright colors and patterns will make you stick out in Spain. Locals in Spain prefer muted and conservative colors. I also don't feel like I experienced that necessarily.
Yeah,
I mean, I dress in black all the time anyway, but like...
I mean, I think overall, like, we do like a lot of brown and black, especially like with coats, but now like fashion is just fashion. And so you have like bright red and a lot of kids are wearing these little bright red and blue and white, kind of like American flag, coats. And so like people wear pink, bright pink. I don't think that's really true.
Okay. Number 4, leave your tennis shoes at home. Wearing tennis shoes anywhere in Europe screams, I'm American.
So that would probably be true like maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago, but not now. Like people wear, especially since, the trend, and I think that's the case in the States too, is to wear tennis shoes with like something very formal. So people wear tennis shoes with everything now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just seemed like, as far as my impression of that it is a pretty recent thing, because I've heard before that like certain places, and maybe it's different in other European countries still, I'm not sure, but like that, like, like you just would never wear tennis shoes when going abroad because you'll just like look like a tourist. But I feel like I saw even more tennis shoes in Spain than I did in the States. But I think you're right, even in the States, that tennis shoes are more and more acceptable in different like social situations. And
tennis shoes have also evolved in their look.
Yeah, that is true.
So that they can look
nicer,
a little less casual.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, or at least even if they still look casual, they can look more fashionable, it seems like, now.
Yeah, like you can wear a dress with it, or, business suit.
Yeah.
And then the last one says leather and fur are in. It won't take you long to notice that leather and fur play prominent roles in how people dress in Spain. For any young adult travel program in Spain, you'll need to bring some sort of jacket. So it talks about how you should wear something leather or fur.
So my question then, Sarah, is how many fur coats do you have?
0. I own 0 fur
Wow.
What? You are
Yeah,
well, how
I am
many
very
leather
behind.
jackets then?
I used to own one leather jacket and I wore it all the time, but I wore it so much that it just kind of fell apart. I'm wanting a new leather jacket, but I mean, yeah, leather is pretty popular in like boots and shoes and jackets, but it's not, you don't need it to be a Spaniard.
Interesting. Well, thanks for your hot tips on that.
Or debunking,
Don't trust
as it
what's
may
on
be.
the internet.
Except for this podcast is
Yeah,
on
except
the
for this podcast.
internet.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can trust us.
Oh man. So I would love to hear something in Madrid that like a couple things in Madrid that are touristy that you love and you're like, this is totally worth it, it's super cool, like there's a reason it's touristy. And then on the flip side, what is something touristy that you would say, don't waste your time, like this thing's overrated?
Yeah, oh, that's a great question.
Oh. I mean, I love getting chocolate con churros at San Ginés. Yeah.
This is the same place that you've already talked about on the
Yes.
podcast,
Yes.
Cheryl, is that correct?
Sarah and I went there together,
Yes,
actually.
it was so
perfect.
good. I think that's definitely worth it. I don't know what you think.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. Yeah. How do you pronounce it? San
Ginés.
Gines. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think there's so by the main Gran Via street, there's these like tall buildings, and you can go up on one of them, and it's called the Gourmet Experience with El Corte Inglés, and it's very touristy. And you can go and kind of see Madrid, and it's really cool because you can look out and see the different buildings, like, or the different monuments, I guess, like the palace, the cathedral. And I think that's pretty cool. What is overrated?
Or not worth the crowd, maybe would be
Not
another
worth the
one.
crowd.
Like, because sometimes
Oh,
something's
man.
cool, but then you're like, don't bother with all the people. I don't know.
Yeah, so like here, I'll give you an example.
Okay.
So for me personally, in London, I did not feel like the changing of the guard was worth it. It took
Okay.
so much time and there were so many people, and someone might really like it, but for me it was not worth the amount of time,
Yeah.
and it did not live up to the expectation, right? But that's like
Yeah.
a really popular thing that people do. So is there something like that that you would say in Madrid?
I honestly can't come up with anything because it's a lot of
I mean,
just
that's
like
cool.
walking and like looking at things, and so I mean, I don't think it's worth it like to spend an entire day, like trying to get every monument in, I can't think of like one thing.
Like, are there any museums? Because Madrid has a lot of museums.
Yeah, there are a lot of museums. So there's like the
Are there
Reina
any
Sofia.
of them that just really aren't worth it, since there's so many of them?
It really depends on how long you're staying. Like if you're here for 2 days, I'd probably say no, don't go. Just like enjoy Madrid. But if you have the chance to go, I think it's worth it because you get Picasso and a lot of cool, I don't know, like paintings. Probably, I would say what is overrated is like the typical tourist day, and if maybe like the tourist buses, because you don't really get to enjoy Madrid.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm not a fan of those.
yeah, I wouldn't do that.
And then is there something that's kind of like an off the beaten path thing, or like not really highlighted so much that you would say, like whether it's something that's kind of outside of the city or just something in the city that's not really well known that you would recommend that people do?
So lavapiés is, well, it's actually becoming really popular now, but it wasn't as popular. But it's right by Malasaña, which is the hipster kind of part of town, and while a lot of people like to go to Malasaña, I recommend Lavapiés because you get a different feel for the city. Like, you just kind of forget that you're in Spain sometimes because you see people from, everywhere and hear so many languages. And I think it's really cool to just, go. I love eating at Indian restaurants there, and they have like Moroccan purse shops and tea rooms and little cafes. My favorite cafe is La Libre, and it's right as you go up to Lavapiés, and it's kind of like hidden behind like all the museums and kind of like the central area of Madrid. So I'd probably say like take time to explore that.
Cool. That's awesome. Oh, man.
Yeah.
And you already talked about chocolate and churros, but is there any other food item that you're like, when you're in Madrid, you have to get this food?
You have to have
Food
tapas, like
food matters.
tortilla, jamón y queso, and bread.
All right. Sweet.
Yes.
Nice. Very cool. Okay, so based on the title of our podcast, Sarah, if you could take us with you to do just one thing in Madrid, what would it be and why?
I would probably take you biking through Retiro Park because it's kind of like the central park of Madrid. And it's just really beautiful no matter what time of the year. And it has a lot of like little secrets. Like the Crystal Palace isn't a secret, but it's one of the main things to see. But you can just stroll or like bike through it, and you'll just find different statues. And a lot of places just like sit, and there's a little lake with boats, and it's really nice.
Cool. That sounds fun.
So I know a lot of, I saw it first in Europe, but it's also kind of popped up here in the States as well. A lot of places have like those bike rental little things.
Yeah.
You can just like, pop a few things in and then do a bike. I assume Madrid probably has something like that. Is that something that you would recommend for this, to go biking through there? Or is there some other way that would be better to get a bike, do you think?
Yeah, they actually just put in like rental bikes like a few years ago. And so I haven't tried them out. But I would probably recommend that because they have them everywhere, every corner, basically.
Yeah.
They also renovated the main street. They renovated it for bikes. So
oh, cool.
They're
That's
white
very cool.
and black.
Okay, gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so Sarah, what's your next trip?
I am going to Cuba next August with some friends.
Ooh.
So that'll be really that's really exciting. We're going with Cubans, so that'll be even more fun. They can actually show us around, and we'll get to meet their friends. And it's more of a service project, so we'll be working at camps and stuff. But I'm really excited for that.
That's cool.
That's awesome. Very
It's going to be
cool.
hot in August.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ryan, it's fine. You weren't invited, so
That's okay.
No one cares.
Oh, man. And do you have any travel questions for us?
What has been your favorite place to visit? Each of you.
I hate favorites. What do you mean by place? Do you mean city, country,
City.
continent?
Location.
I can answer continent pretty easily. City? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. Ryan, do you have yours?
I mean, I feel like we've sort of answered a question like this before.
Yes.
And so I keep coming back to similar things, and it depends on what the purpose is, right? So if it's people, because I have friends in Europe, so there's definitely cities that I would love to go to and I enjoy going back to, but it's because of the people who are there,
Yeah.
right? Because I get to see those people again. But then as far as just like touristy visiting, like it depends on if I want something that's like super crazy busy or super chill, right? Because if I want to do a whole lot of things, I would say London. I
Okay.
love London. But if it's like I want to be just super chill and I just want to relax, I would say Venice. And I also love Venice. But like to me, those two are like complete opposite cities, and I love each of them for those opposite reasons.
Nice. What about you, Cheryl?
Okay, Cheryl. You gotta pick one. Pick one.
I know.
You don't have to choose Madrid just because you're talking to me.
There you go.
I mean, honestly, because of people, like Madrid really climbed up there just because I did meet a lot of really like awesome people there, and that made it really special.
All my grad buddies.
I know, all your grad buddies. I'm coming to graduation. I'll be there. But let's see, as far as just like, man, this is very difficult. Okay, I'm going to come up with my own qualifier and say the city that I am most excited to go back to, because that is a form of favorite, would be like, where do I want to return? And I still have like 10. I am excited to go back to Valencia in Spain. Yeah, so I liked it a lot, but I feel like I'm not done there. I want to spend, so yeah, I think that's one of the top ones. Yeah,
I accept it.
It's so hard to choose.
All right, so we're gonna move to our sort of last segment now, which is called "Wish You Were Here." This is where each of us is going to highlight a different attraction from all of our various travels. So it's just one thing that we think is really cool that while we were there, like, oh, I wish you were here because this is super cool. So Cheryl, why don't you start us out with your wish you were here?
Okay, so my wish you were here from this week is the Boston Public Market in Boston. Surprise. So this is a really cool place. It's an indoor market, which might feel like, I definitely saw markets kind of like it in Spain as well, where like it's a building with like glass windows and doors, like fully enclosed building that feels like you're truly inside, and then is a market. But this one is definitely one that you could just spend a lot of time at, and actually there's like various spots where there's like tables and chairs, so it almost feels like a cooler food court, I would say. And so I loved it. I went there a year ago when I went and visited a friend there, and I had some alone time in the city, and she recommended it. And I actually ended up going there a couple times because there's all these different little booths. And so like I was able to get a lobster roll there, and I really wanted that. She and I actually did wine tasting there at this like little wine spot where they had a couple stools and you could come up and sit and do a wine tasting.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and they had like a chocolate one and a bread one and like all these different, so you could kind of like build your own lunch out of these different businesses. And a lot of them also have like a full restaurant or a full shop somewhere else. But they had just a little booth there and lots of samples. And I'm a big samples fan too. But because I was there in the fall where it was kind of chilly. And so I was able to get a little spot, like this little like bar seating that looked out onto the street. So I was like looking out the window in this little corner and like got all my food together and had my lunch and read a book. And so it was just like a really nice spot to sit and be indoors and but get to experience like a local market. So it's just called the Boston Public Market. And I would totally recommend it. It's really nice too. And so yeah, it's, they have public restrooms inside and a drinking fountain and lots of stuff like that too. So it was like a really nice place to like kind of maybe like if you're out and about walking in the city, like go and sit and gather yourself. And there were enough like out of the way seating areas that I didn't really feel like I was in people's way, which can kind of be a problem if you're like out and about a lot and you're like, I just need to go and sit and like be. And so, yeah, I would definitely recommend that.
Nice.
Sarah, what about you? What's your wish you were here?
So I got to go to France this past summer for about 3 weeks, and it was part of a adventure kind of program where there were like activities basically that we did every day, and it was in the Alps.
Cool.
And I thought it was so cool. It was in Beldon, and it was this kind of like mountain village, and they have this part of a mountain where you can do all sorts of like rock climbing, and I don't know what else they had, but we went paragliding one day, and I thought that was probably the coolest thing. And a lot of people just kind of do this as a hobby. And for me, it was like once in a lifetime thing. But I think it's a cool experience, kind of like very different from just like city life. Just being outdoors and getting to do that, I think it's really cool.
Fun. Oh,
Awesome.
That's awesome. How about you, Ryan?
Yeah, so mine is the Botanical Gardens in Sydney, Australia.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it's super cool. I loved it. So I was in Sydney in 2012, and I was there. I think I've talked about the trip before. I was there with a group of students, and it was just I'm a science guy, so I like, nature and those things anyway, but it was huge. It's this huge park that is gorgeous, and they have a section of it that like is the actual, like it feels like the actual botanical gardens, like the Royal Botanical Gardens, where they have all these different plants and they're all labeled with their names and those sorts of things. And they have like different sort of like biome areas. So they've got like a desert plant area, and they've got all these different things. And there's some beautiful, beautiful flowers and plants that are in that. But the whole thing is this just big giant park, and it has its own kind of like little mini bay that kind of goes kind of in a horseshoe, and you can walk around the whole thing. And the Sydney Opera House is just on the end of one of those, like the top end of one of those U's. So you can be walking around here, and you can like see the Sydney Opera House, and you've got the bay, and you've got the Bay Bridge. And then my favorite thing, and apparently these are all over Southern California, but I did not know that before, and maybe just I hadn't been there when they're in bloom. But there is a type of tree called a jacaranda tree.
Oh,
I've heard of that.
Yeah, I hadn't. But they are purple flowers that bloom and these trees are giant. And at least when we were there, and I don't know how often they bloom, but when we were there, they were all in bloom. And so you've got these big giant trees with these very purple flowers.
Wow.
And just like the green, and it was just gorgeous. And you talked about sort of riding the bike through that park in Madrid that you mentioned earlier, Sarah. And I just being able to just kind of walk and just observe people and just enjoy the beauty of nature. And I don't know. I really, really enjoyed it. And I think I went there several times while we were in Sydney, and you just kind of walk around and you don't have to necessarily go anywhere or be anywhere. And it's, there's paths that go lots of different directions. So it's not like just one little path that you take, and you can just sit and watch the water and look at the opera house or whatever. So that's definitely a spot that I would recommend, the Royal Botanical Gardens in Sydney.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah, the jacaranda tree, there was some at my college in Southern California, and I was just Googling it, and it refers to them as LA's cherry blossoms.
Oh.
So, yeah, they're very striking. Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Fun. Well, Sarah, thanks so much for being on our podcast. Do you have anything that you'd like to plug?
Sure. My Instagram. I share a lot of my just pictures of places and thoughts. My Instagram is Sarah Williams with an H after Sarah and 2 M's.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. This was really fun.
Yeah. Oh, we loved it.
This has been great. Yes, thank you so much, Sarah. If you would like to follow our podcast, you can follow us on all of the socials at Timwy Podcast, TMWY Podcast. We're all over there. We'll post some pictures and things. So we'd love a follow from you there.
And you can also email us at timwepodcast@gmail.com. Send us travel questions or stories, comments on our episodes, things like that. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah, you can also give us a call and leave us a voicemail. If you want to, you can call us at 406-763-8699 or 406-POD. Timwe. Like I said, you can leave us a voicemail or you can even send us a text message. Again, a question, an idea for an upcoming episode, a thought, any of those things. We'd love to hear from you. Please also rate and review us on iTunes or whatever else you happen to be listening to us on. Those reviews help us get heard by more people and kind of rise in the ranks so people can know more about our podcast. And if you like us enough to listen to us regularly, then we'd love for you to subscribe so you get our episodes every Monday.
Yeah, and thank you so much to Beth Morrell for our awesome artwork. You can check out more of her artwork at Beth Is Something.
Yay, thanks, Beth. All right, that's going to do it for our episode. Thanks one more time, Sarah, for being with us.
Yes,
we love the
thank
conversation. And until next time, please remember to take me with you.
Take me with you.